So welcome to the Grow with Ryan Magic Show. I'm really excited to have a D&M essentially with Sarah Riegelhuth today, who is an awakened soul, is the way I'm going to describe you. You're a really successful entrepreneur. And I was saying off camera before that the first time I came into contact with you was when you were speaking on stage at a big conference in Melbourne. And this is probably maybe 10 years ago, ages
Yeah.
ago, a long time ago. And I really connected with you because you were real, raw, and authentic, and your identity and the way that you approach your life and business is obviously really different back then, but you were running a successful finance company and you were making it happen. You were chasing your dreams and you were going after it. What I'm really interested in talking about today, though, and it's going to be very candid. I don't have a big set of questions I'm going to ask, but it's going to flow with it. But I really love how you've been able to transition over the last 3, 4, 5 years into a more free and liberated spirit, and break the molds of your past and make changes that can allow you to authentically live within who you currently are. And I feel like you've made huge changes. You've moved countries, you've ended a marriage, you've changed a business that you said you're in finance, that industry for 17 years. This is some massive changes. So talk to me about like how was that process of transitioning these huge areas of your life?
Firstly, thank you for reflecting back to me that you found me to be raw and authentic and real back in 2010 or 11 or whenever it was that I was up on stage, because I think it's just beautiful to receive that. And I think, sometimes when we go on this journey of waking up or whatever you want to label it, we try to like create the stories around it and the timeline, and this is what happened and I was like this before and now I'm like this. And I sometimes struggle with that because it's the like juxtaposition of like who I always was, where I got lost, what I came back to. And, I think it is just really nice to hear that I was still myself as I could be then. And now I've stepped, I believe, further into that. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for that,
worries.
like benefit for myself. That reflection is really
You know
nice.
what? I'd love to pick up on that point, because I feel like a lot of us in this, when we're doing this work, shame ourselves, our egos, our personalities, which can be destructive, as opposed to tame. So I like the idea of taming, not shaming. Because, so for example, with me, I like to drive growth. I like business. I like the excitement of tackling something that's tricky to tackle. Now, if my whole self-worth is unraveled in that, and if I don't do that, I feel like I'm a nobody and I'm a piece of shit, then hang on a second, that needs to be tamed massively. But just the essence of being someone that likes growth and likes business and even potentially, likes material things or likes sex or whatever it is, the essence of those things are just different representations of the material world that we're here, like spiritual beings having a human experience. So if we're shaming it all, I feel like it comes from a deep, like just it comes to the surface for us to really learn to unconditionally love all parts of ourselves, even those that seem less spiritual or conscious. And this is like a massive thing that I've been working through recently as well. So it's really cool to hear you say that, because it echoes kind of my insecurities and just low self-worth coming to the surface at times. And yeah, it's nice to hear.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's so true. It's like just what are the drivers for things, and like the thing itself or the way of being itself is not necessarily bad. Or nothing's bad or good really anyway, but it's just like, what are my drivers, and am I willing to look at them, and are they healthy or are they unhealthy? And not just labeling, I mean, you use sex as an example, not just labeling liking sex as bad, more like going, what are my healthy drivers towards sex? Where am I having expansive, growing, all of that kind of experiences? And where am I maybe using it as an escape or whatever? And all of that is like a compass, an internal compass. If we are willing to look, open the cupboard and have a look inside, we get to like grow through that experience as well. It's not It's like the light and shadow of us. It exists within us. It's just part of who
Yeah.
we are and part of the journey.
Yeah. And I feel like even if, like, let's say with sex, even if you quote unquote, you became conscious of it and then you quote unquote relapsed and just had a bunch of sex that was non-conscious, or to get a release, or to make yourself feel bigger or better, or what's hypothetically, some people might have that with
Mm-hmm.
sex or sugar or work, like achieving in business or whatever it is, then it's still, it's just, I like to reframe it as research versus relapse, as if, because then it
Mm-hmm.
takes away the idea of it that it's wrong. It's just like, you need the research to understand what you have a preference for and don't have a preference for. If you just
Mm-hmm.
like started meditating every day and then you never didn't meditate, then you don't get the contrast to remember how beautiful the experience is as well. So I feel like just that non-shaming is so important.
I love that. I always think of it as this, like, it's like forgetting and remembering again and forgetting and remembering again. And I feel like, to circle back to your initial question, or what came to me from your initial question, is like, my whole life has been this journey of like forgetting and remembering again and forgetting and remembering again. So I don't, my experience wasn't to have this one profound spiritual awakening. It was like, I thought about the vastness of the universe and what the meaning of my existence was when I was like, from my earliest memories, 5 years old, 6 years old. The earliest thoughts and memories that I had were thoughts like that. And
Mm,
then I went through periods of my life where I numbed it all out because it was too hard to think about. It was too much to
mm,
feel all of the things that I felt as someone who was like more connected, maybe, or I don't know if more, I just was connected. Like, I was being told from the world around me, like, that I'm very sensitive and very emotional. I should not think about things so much. I should just relax. And so then this journey of my life seems to have been this like forgetting and remembering. So, and by
mm.
forgetting, a lot of it was very intentional, like numbing out with busyness, with,
Yeah.
trying to be something, trying to prove myself with drugs and alcohol and sex and relationships and, everything that we can use to numb and escape and
Mm,
avoid and forget. And then these moments of like remembering again and reconnecting again. And I feel in this moment in time that I'm on a journey on the remembering side, and it doesn't feel like I will like fully forget again or want to numb out again, because that
yeah.
would be, I think, the journey I've been on, particularly the last year, but probably 3 years, is like really a lot of deep inner work. And there are still days where I'm like, fuck, I just want to go back to sleep. Like, this is so hard. But for the most part, that's not how I feel. For the most part, I feel like deeply aligned, deeply connected,
Mm,
unconditional love for myself, which allows me to unconditionally love others, like all of that, that is
mm,
amazing. But it can be really overwhelming as well.
yeah. You seem to have this really deep groundedness about yourself. And I don't, because we didn't connect at all in terms of person to person chatting about things back in the day. But my general view of you was someone that had like a sweet, sensitive personality, which you still have, but it seems as though you've like leaned into more of your radical, authentic love for yourself and unconditional love for yourself. And I think for a lot of people in the conscious communities, it's almost seen as bad to be, angry, or bad to be decisive, or bad to be, you know, say no. And I feel like you've really developed the part of yourself that has that unconditional love and gives permission for you just to be raw, real, raw, and you. And there's a greater power, and I sense greater strength in your personality just from your
Mm-hmm.
energy since we've chatted.
That's been like the biggest part of my journey in the last 12 months, I would say, has been this journey back to 100% truth. And,
Mm,
I think it's been such an exploration for me. It's almost been like a friggin' research project or something to really understand what truth is. And there's this whole spectrum from like blatant lies that you're saying, and like you can move that out of the way pretty quickly. Like I've definitely gone down that path in my life. Like I've explored what it's like to live like show up with a lie and kind of be hiding something that's very obvious. But that was very quickly uncomfortable for me. So
Are you saying you did
that
that
was
on intentionally to experience what it's like, or you just told lies in the past?
no, I wouldn't say I did it intentionally, but it happened. Like I look at it
Yeah,
as
sure.
the soul's journey, or my human experience is like, yeah, it's really fascinating actually. Let me step back. Like my relationship with truth and alignment and honesty and connection, so like started as an early child. Like everything was very exactly as I experienced it. I said it, I spoke it, I felt it, I acted it, I was it. And then getting into my teen years and my 20s, I started seeing and understanding that like everyone around me wasn't living to those same rules. People were doing all sorts of things that they weren't being open and honest about. And I was finding that my honesty, it felt like it was being punished because I was showing up as who I was, and people were like, that's, don't do that thing, or you're really bad because you do that thing or whatever. And I was like, oh man, like I don't, then I start thinking, well, who is this person that I'm meant to be? And that's where we go down that path. But like, as an example of the thing that I'm thinking of, like, might as well just say it. But like at the end of my marriage, I had an affair for a short period of time, about 2 months, I think it was.
Thanks for
So
your
that was
vulnerability.
my pleasure. That was my very like obvious step in, like, I know I'm telling a lie. Like I'm showing up every day fucking lying, and I'm living some kind of double life. Like that was that end of the truth spectrum. And I found myself in it. I tried to explore it for a little while to see, like, I didn't make the decision to do that to explore it, but once I was in it, I was like, I don't know, maybe I can do this. Like, maybe I can handle it or whatever. And very quickly I was like, no, I don't like this. And the reason this is happening is a deeper indication of what is not right in my life. And let's just address that. And so I came clean. All of the other issues in my marriage came to the surface, and we ended up separating, which was that part of that journey. But what I've explored,
do you think you would have separated if that didn't happen? Because you said
100%.
You would have still?
Yeah. Oh, wait. Let me make sure I understand. You're not saying if I didn't tell, you're saying if it just didn't happen at all.
Yeah, like maybe that came in to cause the friction needed for things to come to the surface.
100% that is true. To say whether I would or wouldn't have separated, I believe that ultimately I would have found my way.
Yeah.
To something, like either to separation or to genuine ability to grow back together. But we didn't do that path. We did the separation path. So, sliding doors, right? Like how would things have gone down? We're always, who we are now is not who we were then, and the tools we have now is not the tools we had then, and things like that. But I absolutely feel that situation came into my life to wake me up to the things that were not working for me. They were not fulfilling me. I didn't feel like myself. I drifted so far from myself. And this is where I talk about truth being like, I drifted so far from myself, not in like showing up and lying every day, but I just wasn't speaking my truth. I wasn't like
radically
able
authentic.
I wasn't able to be who I was and have my needs met and hold myself for who I was and what I needed. And it ended up manifesting into this very obvious, like, I'm having an affair and I'm lying about it and I'm living a double life. And I was like, whoa. And that was like my first, like, so I came clean about it. We separated and all of that. And then I started exploring like all of it, like truth, and how so many people are not in truth, and how I wasn't in truth in so many areas of my life. And when you start peeling back the layers, you're like, what are all the things that I like little things, like I'm with my friend and we're trying to decide which restaurant to go to, and I have a preference, but I don't say it because I don't want to, like, I don't care enough. I'm
Totally.
like, whatever, we can go to whatever restaurant. But like,
Yeah.
why am I so scared to just be like, I would love Thai tonight. Like,
Yeah.
and that was a big part of my journey, was like with my abandonment wounding and stuff from my childhood, is like
Feel
being
ya.
really easygoing and going with the flow and not wanting to rock the boat,
Mm.
um, and wanting to just kind of keep the peace and keep everybody happy. And also I am pretty chill. So there's also this element of like, I don't really care that much, but like I
Yeah.
had to really practice saying, I don't mind where we eat. My preference is there.
Yes.
And like, that's the truth. Like, I actually don't mind.
Yes.
But to practice just to say, I would like that. And to have the person I'm with be like, I really want the other one. And me be like, that's fine. Let's just do that thing. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like practicing actually saying it, that's been like this huge exploration for me of like really diving into, in every moment, what is my truth, and
Mm.
am I living it?
And
Like, and even for me, like, where am I kidding myself?
yeah. No, totally. Thanks for sharing that. That's like most people in the whole world don't realize that they're not free. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the ability just to, and this is what I loved you said earlier about being a child. It's like when I was younger, I kind of like, I felt something and then I just did it, and I was just being myself. And then as time went on, I got penalized for that because people didn't just like and were happy with my complete authentic self. And that's always going to be the truth. But when you're young and you're a kid, your whole survival is based upon being dependent from others. You're not just like a free liberated adult. I feel like if you're born as an adult and you're just individual, then that
Mm-hmm.
problem or that journey of learning to love yourself unconditionally probably wouldn't be needed. Because when you're a kid and you're dependent, seeking approval and appeasing your parents is not just about having a nicer relationship with them. It's like, if you don't, and you make the decision, they don't love me now, then you
Mm-hmm.
think, holy crap, they're not going to protect me and I could die. And so you
Mm-hmm.
really take seriously these decisions that you make about who you need to be to keep the peace, or in your case, like being that kind of, I'm okay with anything. I just rather there not be conflict, because if there's conflict, my whole life could be in danger. That journey is that's why it happens. And it's important, because then we do learn to unconditionally love ourselves. It's like we are born kind of like pure, so to speak, and then we become impure, and then we learn to be more pure in our own flavor.
Mm-hmm. And that is like how it feels. Like when I'm
Mm,
triggered into my abandonment wounding, it sometimes feels like I'm going to die.
mm,
And like, that's the sign that it's like, okay, my inner child is showing up. This is stuff that I need to heal. And
yeah,
I didn't know this stuff years ago, but I've done the work, in more recent years, to understand it, to heal it, to create a relationship with it, to know what it is. But that's a really good indicator for you. Like when we're feeling like super triggered and it's like visceral in our body, and it's like the world is like
yeah,
the ground is coming out from under our feet, and we want to like either run or latch or cling or withdraw, or whatever that feeling is, where it's like, I have to do this and I almost can't stop myself. Like,
mm,
that's that childhood wounding that's showing up.
yeah,
And the reason it feels like that is exactly what you said, that when it showed up for you as a child, you actually didn't know if you were going to survive. Like, your whole entire
yeah,
life force is not specifically in your hands, especially at very young ages, like 1-2 years old. Like, you are reliant on someone to feed you and clothe you, and
yeah.
you're still moving through that separation process. And I think on that point as well, like, something I had to open up to is that we all have wounding, and there's no scale, there's no like, oh,
Like the
my
content.
trauma is
Yeah,
bad enough and it's worthy to heal. That's what I
yeah,
used to think. Like, mine wasn't that bad, so I should just be grateful for a good life, and I should just be positive and let go of it. The reality is, we come out as a baby, we think we are our mother. We literally think we're the same thing. We also, depending on your belief system, just come from oneness. as a soul. Like we've just come from infinite connection to the universe
Just
into a human body.
just slid in from oneness into the world.
Yeah, so we slide in from oneness, we get birthed out of our mother, so we kind of think we're our mother, and then over time we're like learning that we're in our own thing and we're our own person, right? And so that separation that occurs is traumatic. It doesn't matter if you just got dropped at your loving grandparents' place for the weekend to stay, you just got abandoned or rejected or betrayed or however your little body and mind interprets it at the time. That's the wounding that is, we just can do the work to go back and nurture that inner child and be like, you're going to be okay. Like, it's all right. It doesn't have to be this very dramatic thing that needs healing. It's like all of us have some healing work to do.
Yeah. And if you downplay your own trauma, even if it's subtle, like the content and the context of what happened is really subtle when you're younger. If you downplay it for yourself, you automatically downplay it for others, which means that and I would summarize that by saying that when you do this work, you build so much empathy and compassion for yourself. And then that translates onto others. Because I was ruthless and cold and shut off when I was like really driving hard in business. I was like, if you're not living your dream life, like fucking go out there and make it happen. Stop being a pussy, make it happen. And that was because I saw myself as a pussy if I wasn't doing it. And I lacked the empathy and compassion for myself to be equally worthy of love, no matter what I chose to do. And so I just projected my map onto everyone else, and my innate insecurities onto everyone else as well.
And pussies are awesome, by the way.
I love a good pussy.
No, you're exactly right. And you rob yourself as well of your own freedom, because while you're unhealed, you're just playing out your traumas.
I could see
and
your
your
smile
dramas
behind your face as well. Love it. Totally. So I just wanted to like quickly encapsulate the point for anyone that's listening here. Pussies are awesome. No, I'm joking. Everyone that's listening here, it's so like the whole thing we're exploring here is like radical freedom internally. Like, and a lot of people normalize not having freedom because you can go through life and avoid all the traumas. It's like trauma, go this way, trauma this way, trauma this way. And you're like a pinball, like you're like a pinball in a pinball machine, just like getting just reactively put everywhere. You can't forge the path that feels most expansive because every time you hit a trigger, you avoid it. And you're actually living this really contracted, shut off, small opportunity life that doesn't give you infinite possibility. But when you start going through each trigger one by one, and you feel that kind of trauma, or even a subtle, just like I'm in fight or flight because I want to ask my friend where we should go for dinner, and I'm just scared to ask the question. That fight or flight that come up is like a fear of rejection from when you're younger. And if you don't tackle it, you can't even have conversations. You're blocked off from so many possibilities in your life. So just knowing that, hang on a second, I've got the ability to work through this shit that gives me the ability to be free in what I want to do. That in itself is like a really important point to consider. And from a business perspective, it means that you're so much more powerful, so to speak, or able to grow because you don't just go in and take action based upon what feels comfortable, which is not going to get you very far in business.
I mean, all of this stuff just translates to every relationship we have, whether it's a family member, a best friend, a lover, or our team members or business partners or clients. Like if we're not healing our wounding, those triggers come up in all of those relationships as well. And then we're trapped in our cycles just everywhere in our life. And exactly what you said, like freedom is to do this healing and to be in radical truth with yourself is the most freest thing you can ever do. And it's like, I mean, the work never ends. Like this stuff is infinite. The layers are infinite. Like some of the stuff I'm moving through now is like these like deeper, finer layers of my abandonment wounding. Like I'm working through some stuff with asthma. I had asthma as a child and I healed it. Like after I did ayahuasca last year, I had this dream and I kind of like understood.
Did you do that through the mastermind, Aubrey Marcus's mastermind, or just
I did it at Soltara in Costa Rica, which the owner of Soltara is a member of the Fit for Service, Dan Cleland, I think it is.
Cool.
Cleveland, yeah. Soltara is amazing. I've been there twice now for 2-week-long ayahuasca retreats.
Wow.
But yeah, I healed after my first ayahuasca. I understood that my asthma was a response in my childhood to the feelings of abandonment, and it was a way for me to get what I considered to be unconditional love. And so, you know, I'd lent
Really
on it
powerful.
unconsciously as a child,
Mm.
knowing that if I had an asthma attack, you know, everyone would drop everything and take me to the hospital. And I didn't know this. It was totally unconscious. I was just like everybody else, believing that our physical bodies have illnesses that are just random or sometimes genetic, which I really question all of that stuff now. Like, I'm going deep with this. Our bodies are fucking amazing compass for the inner work and the healing and the expansion that we can do.
Yeah.
So I'm at the point now where the asthma is largely gone. I'm not on any medication anymore.
Wow.
And that's been over a year. And I was taking a steroid inhaler every single day my whole life.
Holy
I'm
crap.
39 years old. So yeah, up until from 2 years old to 37-ish, 38, I've been taking a steroid inhaler every single day. And I had this dream after ayahuasca. I was journaling one day and it all just came out. Like, this was your childhood wounding. This was to do with your needing love and your way to get love. And I was like, oh my goodness, could this be real? Like, it blew my own mind. And then I realized I hadn't had my medication for like 4 days. And I was like, huh. Usually around that point, if I'd ever run out before and like tried to push my limit before I got my script filled, like 3-4 days, I would start getting really sick again. And I was like, I'm just going to keep going. And I just kept going. It's been a year.
Wow.
But in the last like 3-ish months, it's like shown up a couple of times again. And I'm working through one. I'm in a new relationship. So I'd been single for the whole of last year. So now I'm in a new relationship. So I'm opening myself up. I'm vulnerable to this potential abandonment or abandoning and all of that. And,
Wow.
you know, a couple of things have come up with my ex-husband and stuff, things we've been working through. And like, it's been fascinating to watch me go into like an asthma attack essentially and be like, whoa, okay, what's happening? And
Yeah.
it's my body saying, you've got some work to do here. And I feel like it's physical. I feel like I want to reach for my medication and I want to just cut those symptoms off. But what I've understood is those symptoms, and I mean, this is not medical advice, I'm purely sharing my experience, but those symptoms are my body screaming at me like, don't do this thing, or, you know, look into this further, or there's something here that you need to get to. Like, you are not trapped. You might feel trapped, or you might feel scared, or you might feel a certain way, but that's not real. And what I've basically done, it's happened, I think 3 or 4 times now. I've just gone and sat and meditated and just sat with it until the point that finally I crack the nut and I'm like, that's the thing. And as soon as I find it, it's like everything opens up and it lifts.
Wow.
It's amazing.
And
And like,
it's so amazing. And everyone that does the work goes through equivalence in some way of this. It's not
yeah,
like it, because if you'd never been exposed to spirituality and you're listening, you'd just be like, what? That is so incredible. You're just sitting there. Coincidentally, you hadn't had your inhaler for 4 days. And then at the same time, you just had this random like thoughts come into your mind of, oh, this was a way of me doing this and this. Like when I was younger, to feel like everyone would come around and make me feel loved and supported and safe and nurtured. That's why I was having the asthma attacks. So that just come out of the blue is just crazy. But it's just, it
well,
happens
and
to
yeah,
everyone.
the more connected you are, the more aligned you are, like you have room for these downloads to come through.
Yeah.
But and I'm sharing it because it happened this morning. It's top of mind for me. And
Mm,
it's a head game. Like, it is the toughest mental work I've ever done in my life. Like, I have run ultra marathons. I've grown companies. I've been 5 years in court cases. I have done so much compartmentalizing and mental strength and toughness. This work is the hardest work because I've been conditioned my entire life that I have a physical illness that is random and occurred to me and I need medication to treat it, and there's no other
yeah.
way. And every single time it happens, I'm like, oh, are you crazy? Do you just need to go to the hospital? Or are you going to sit here and find your way through this by digging into your inner world. And like
Yeah.
every time, like, just, you can do this, Sarah, like just be strong. But today I like, once I got through it all, I went for a big like hour-long walk, and I just went and sat in a cafe and just contemplated, and I shed a few tears because I was like, damn, this is like the hardest work. This is really, it's really challenging me.
And to bring it back, it's like the reason why this work's being done is because without working through this, as like every trigger that comes up is a part of you that you haven't learned to unconditionally love yet. You haven't been able to feel unconditionally loved while this current trigger is still existing. Because every time it comes up, it's showing you, hey, look, and anytime you get in this scenario, you feel really unsafe, you feel really out of control, and you can't just show up free, light, grounded, casual. So it's a big block. And there's like, maybe you experience it subtly 50 times a week without even realizing it. It's dictating your action. And so it's like doing the work's benefit, or the reason that we do this stuff, is because once you've worked through it, you're free from that.
You're free of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, I think
thing
it's
that,
a good, important reminder.
sorry for cutting you
No,
off.
jump in.
Yeah, like the thing that I was working through this morning is this pattern that I have of feeling responsible for somebody else's experience, for somebody else's emotions, and then trying to soften the blow, or like, smooth out my words so that it doesn't feel so bad or whatever. And that's often with my romantic partners or whoever it is, like just not wanting to hurt them or upset them or trigger them. Also, on the other side of that pattern is giving over responsibility from my experience to my partners, which turns into like expectation, and
You
they
have
should
that
be a
for them?
certain way.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I've had both, and I can
Yeah.
look with friends, like friends should be a certain way, friends should do this, and then being on the other side of that, where a friend wants me to be something and I didn't do it, and now they're upset. And what I'm really getting to the acorn of, I guess, in the
These
past
nut
few
metaphors,
days,
these nut
this nuts, yeah.
symbology, these nuts keep
What
coming up.
what I've been getting to these past days is just really deeply letting go of that idea that anybody else's experience is my responsibility. It's not. Even if something I did caused them pain,
Yeah.
like, I did my best. I
Yes.
never wake up ever and think I'm going to be a fucking asshole today. Like, every day of my life, I've shown up and done my best. Sometimes my best was shitty because of all of my own stuff and because of where I was at and what I did or didn't know at the time. But like, I just need to forgive myself and trust that our souls journeyed together to have that experience, and they're having their experience and they're growing through it, and I'm having my experience and I'm growing through it. And like, conceptually, I know that, but like really doing the healing work inside me to let go, truly let go of this idea that I have any control over anybody else. Like,
Yeah.
my only work is to show up as clear as I can be in myself, in my truth, in my alignment, in my authenticity.
Yeah. And it's going to be very immersive, this work. Yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
work of unraveling your triggers and learning to love yourself unconditionally, and understanding that you're more than just a identity of Sarah Riegelhuth and Ryan Magic, and we're just going through this world like XYZ. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, it is a lot of work. And
We're probably diving in like way too deep right now.
but remember, I do this
Sorry,
massive,
listeners.
yeah. Nah, again, that's even the thing coming up subtly, because we're doing it. I don't know about you, but I was doing this for my own joy, this interview. I know that there
Yeah.
was like a little element of kind of like connection. I've seen you, we should, yeah, let's do the chat. It feels cool. And so we're doing it for our own joy. Anything else is a benefit. But I
Yeah.
can resonate massively with the kind of like, I'll call it pleaser codes, or the need to not disrupt anyone else or anything else. But some people wouldn't think this, like when you were like, we've just got to let go of this idea that me being my authentic self and me just showing up how I do the best as I can every single day, it's not my responsibility to then make sure that other people's response to that is completely okay. It's like, and you're like, that's what I'm kind of experiencing. This is my belief. And we just have to let go of that. Some people don't even have that stretch. I have that stretch as well. I feel like we're really similar, but some people have the opposite stretch where they're just like, they're just like, I just do what I want. And if other people respond, then it's their fault. And they're just like on the other way, because that's their protection mechanism. And they need to let go of that need to like fight every time, because they're just not cool, calm, and collected in who they are. And their strategy is to fight. But I wanted to let you know that you've mentioned your stretches and you've been super vulnerable and authentic. And it really shows that you've worked on them, because they're not super apparent. And I know when we do this work, sometimes we can kind of normalize the growth seems less obvious because it's all intangible in terms of when you're working through it, and then it yields a kind of more tangible result once you've done the work. But sometimes you can not really know whether or not you've worked through it, or just kind of skip past the fact that you've done a bunch of growth. But you can really feel what you're talking about as something that you're already embodying really well. Like you're mentioning it as a stretch because you know it's your stretch. But in terms of the reality of our experience, I don't feel that you have like a big pleaser kind of personality. I feel like you've done a lot of work and you made huge progress.
Totally. And I think it's like, this is where the deeper you go into your work, it's like these last, or not even last, but these like deeper layers where I'm like, okay, where is it? Yeah. Like, where is it still showing up for me? Like, 16-year-old Sarah was, much more of a pleaser, or maybe even 12-year-old Sarah was much more of a pleaser than, who I am now, for sure. And you know what, like, there's also like all these different archetypes in us, because there's also the part of me that goes out and gets whatever the fuck I want. And like that shows up. It's just a different energy. So some people might be listening like, Sarah I don't experience her as a pleaser. Like, she's pretty go-getter. And that is true of me as well. Like, it's understanding all the different parts of us, and they all show up. Like, sometimes I can be a victim. Sometimes I'm a fucking warrior. Sometimes I'm a wanderer. Like, if anyone's familiar with archetype work, like all of these archetypes are in us, and some of them are stronger than others. And so while we do this work to understand ourselves and understand ourselves deeply, I think in the beginning it's like trying to define, whereas now it's like, oh, I understand that is a part of me. I also understand that that's a part of me that's causing me pain. Like, that's a part of me that hurts and that struggles. The Sarah that's confident and goes out, gets what she wants, like, that's just me when I'm in my light and when I'm in my expansion and when I'm in my good energy, and that doesn't cause me stress. But the me that tries to shrink back sometimes, and that does happen, that's the bits that I'm working on or whatever. And I mean, there's so much.
We could talk forever.
Yeah.
But I think you get to a point with this work that I love saying this work. I feel like a custodian of the message of the work. When you're doing this work, it becomes kind of fun as well. And because you're going through it, it's fun to talk about it with other people. So this is like a jamming session for us, just doing what's like a big part of our life. But what I'd love to bring it back to, and just be really authentic with this.
I love it.
I love talking about it. But what I want to bring it back to is, so we've both been really business driven and business successful. And then we've gone, hang on a second, why am I like this? And we question it, or the universe gave us these opportunities to look at ourselves and go, hang on a second, I'm just like reacting in such a crazy way to protect myself. And is this drive, like, am I fulfilled? Holy crap, I'm not. And then you start looking inwards. And then I feel like there's a transition where you do a chunk of the work. And because it's a different mode to showing up in business, it doesn't yield as solid of a result, because your strategies, you haven't learned to do a new way of business. The old way was clear. The new way is new. And I'm curious to know, like, your authentic experience in transitioning from being in business and doing it from like I just know that I want to be successful and I need to make it work and grow, same as me. And then how did you, and have you fully been able to integrate back into growing a business in a way that's healthy? And what's different about it? Are you more successful, less successful? Are you on the journey of it? I'd love for you to talk to that, because I'm curious for myself, and I'm also kind of at some point in that journey as well.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's the first question you asked me and I got totally sidetracked. So I will try to answer this one directly.
It's been great.
So I was absolutely driven to prove myself in my business. So it was very like I needed to prove my worth, my validity, my value, my enoughness to the world. And that was what drove everything. And it was all very external, which is why I was driven to build a personal brand, why I was doing speaking and TV and, winning awards and all these things that were very visible. It was because I needed that to continually feed that void in me that said that I wasn't enough, to be like, oh, look, you got another award. You are enough until, and like so many of us have experienced, like every time you hit a goal or reach something, like you were already focused on the next thing. The emptiness didn't go away. And it's just you're just chasing a never ending bunny rabbit. I don't know. You're like a dog chasing a rabbit with no idea why you're chasing it, right? You're just going down this path and nothing you can't ever catch that thing. And I think I realized that, that would have been around the time of my marriage ending and everything, was when it all started kicking off. Like my dad died in 2013. That definitely started the questioning of like, why am I doing all the things I'm doing? And he hadn't retired yet, and he was working toward this goal of retirement. That's what he wanted to do. And he hadn't been on vacation for like 5 years. And I was like, so that sort of started the questioning. And then my ex-husband and I moved to America. We were living in this amazing ski resort in Beaver Creek in Colorado. We had like a 8-bedroom, 8-bathroom mansion. We'd like sold some companies. We had, our net worth was, several $1 million. We had other businesses going. Like so many things were like as they were meant to be by the book. And looking around my life, I literally had everything I'd ever wanted and could want, but I just felt hollow inside. I just, the pain was there, and there was nothing more externally that I could stuff that hole with. It was like I needed to let it out and feel it and be who I truly was and go on this journey that I've been on. So
now a quick interlude on that. You are either going to be in one of two camps. You're either going to be in a position where you're already successful and you can just resonate with it, or you could be in the third category and you're just like really on the journey, or you could be in a position where you haven't really gotten everything that you kind of feel like you wanted. And in that case, there's this, it's like everyone is told that money doesn't make you happy, but people just usually need to figure that out on their own. Like I heard it a million times, disregarded it every single time, didn't give a shit, didn't change my motivation at all. And then when I got it, I instantly went, oh fuck. Every single time I heard that, which was hundreds and hundreds of times, I disregarded it. And so I feel like, this can be a really good, I don't feel like it's going to stop you if you're really driven to make it and have that as the attachment to your self-worth. But at least you can kind of hear the truth of what's going to happen. And then when it does happen, you're not all shocked. And then you can just start doing the work.
I think Jim Carrey said, like, I wish everyone could have millions of dollars so they know that it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like
Jim Carrey's a really awesome guy.
Oh my God, he's like
crazy
my hero.
character.
I love him. Yeah. But yeah, that's basically what happened. I was just like, well, it didn't matter how much I had. I felt the pain and the emptiness and the existential crisis, and everything that had always existed in me still existed. So that was my point. And I did the work back then to look into like, well, why, like what's actually driving me? And it was all of that proving and everything. And then, I went through a couple of years that was mainly 2018. It would have been about a year where I sold out of Wealth Enhancers, ended my financial planning career, which felt like my life's work at that time.
It was your life's work at that time.
Yeah, it was. And I had very strong attachments to being a finance expert, being a successful entrepreneur within that sector. I mean, I did have a couple of other businesses that were in different fields, but I hadn't sold them. I knew the formula in financial planning. Like I knew how to build something and sell it and do that. And I went through this time of, it was probably only about 3 or 4 months, because I was so uncomfortable in that period of not doing anything. But I went through this 3 or 4 month period of like trying to not do anything to try to figure out what was next. And I had so much self-doubt come up, and so much just like, you're nothing. Like, everything is in the past. You did it. You got lucky. You had business partners. Maybe you're not anything. It was all a fluke. Like, every possible form of self-doubt that you can
Thanks for the
imagine.
vulnerability. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, my pleasure. Everything you could imagine came out in me, and I just, it was so hard for me to like do nothing. I started mentoring all these other businesses. I got on boards. Like, I was just doing all this stuff because it was just
Yeah.
so uncomfortable for me to like do nothing. And then I ended up having a breakdown. Like in 2018 in October, I had an actual breakdown. It was just, I couldn't go anymore. And I still
Like
did have,
physically and mentally, like if you
yep,
physically felt exhausted.
full on
Yeah.
done. I was
Yeah.
like dunzos. It was just,
Dunsies.
yeah, it was over. I was I'd just flown back to Australia actually. So I think it was the jet lag that probably just like popped
Kicked
me
it
over
off.
the edge. But I had been living, I was in a relationship that was not serving me as well, and going through all of this stuff, the breakdown of the business working relationship with my ex-husband, selling out of the company, letting go of finance, still grieving my marriage, still grieving my dad. Like, I didn't grieve my dad's death until my marriage ended. Like, I'd blocked that out for 4 years. So it was all coming in 2018, every single thing. Excuse me. And like, I was, going back to the body, like, I remember one day I was sitting at my desk, I was living in Vancouver, and I was so miserable and so unhappy. And I put this sweater on, and all of a sudden I started itching, and I looked, and I had like hives all over me. And I was like, did I like wash this sweater in something or what? I took it off, put another sweater on. I went to Whole Foods, which was just across the street, and went into the herbal medicine section. I was just like staring, like, something help me. And the woman came up to guide me, and she was like, oh, can I help you? And I was like, she must have just seen it all over me. And I was like, I don't know, I've got this thing on me. Like, can you? And she's like, darling, like, does something in your life need to change? And I was like, so much. Like, I just burst into tears, and I don't even remember. I think she just walked away. Sometimes I'm like, was she just a guardian angel that just appeared to say that to me? Because it was it was a very strange thing. She said, you've got hives. Does something in your life need to change? And it was like so much. Like, the relationship I was in was not serving me. I was not happy living in Vancouver. You really had to honor and grieve all of these things for myself. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, I fly back to Australia. I think the jet lag was the thing that tipped me over the edge. I woke up the next day. Didn't sleep the whole night. So I must have been so tired, and I had to go to a winery lunch for a girlfriend's hen's party, bachelorette thing. And on the bus, the way down there, I was just like, I don't want to live anymore. I was just staring out the window, and I was crying. I had tears rolling down my face. I was blinking them back. Everyone's like drinking. Don't anyone talk to me, and I just need to survive the day.
Wow.
And I also don't really care, and I just don't want to live anymore. And
Wow.
on the way back, I got to the winery. I had a couple of drinks, just trying to, maybe that'll help me just get through this day,
Yeah.
Sorry. And I was at that point where like nothing was really going to help me. And on the way back on that little minibus, I once again was doing the, I can't do this, I can't live. And then I just had that moment of like, your thoughts are so powerful. Like, you have manifested everything in your life. This is not a path you want to go down, because the spider web of the thought that starts with, I don't want to live anymore, does not end in a good place. And I saw it for what it was. And I was like, this is it. Like, I've hit my rock bottom. Something's got to give. And I got back to the Airbnb, and I just started crying to my girlfriends. And I was like, I can't go out tonight. I can't do anything. Like, I'm a mess. And I guess they could see it on me as well. And my girlfriend, Danny Wales, called my sister, and they just like, she was like, where do you want to be? What do you want to do? And I was like, I just want to be with my sister. And they called and organized a flight for me, and I flew down to Tasmania. And I still had 2 businesses at the time. And I just told all of my team, like, I can't do anything right now. Like, just do your best. I don't know how long I'm going to be out for, but I need to look after myself. And it was really quite confronting and quite scary to just be like, I don't even care enough to worry about my business's success or failure, or anything. I just need to look after myself and try to stay alive right now. And so I went through that. It was about a month, and I just did a lot of work. I ended up going on silent retreat, and I started just like climbing my way out of the hole.
Mm.
But that was really like the rock bottom point, and then it was like climbing back from there. And I guess it was October 2018 that happened, and then May 2019 that I went on ayahuasca retreat. And that 6 months where I was climbing out of the hole was pretty damn miserable. Like I feel like I was still in the hole, sort
Mm.
of like popping my head up every so often, but like I wasn't making a lot of progress, and I was doing everything, I wasn't doing drugs or alcohol, or, I was exercising, I was meditating, I was journaling, I was doing like all of the things that you're meant to do when you are experiencing depression or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, every day, like I was doing the checklist, and nothing was really shifting. Like, I mean, there was some progress from that terrible day, but
It
like
would have been shifting, but it would have been like there was,
it just
because
felt
this is,
hard.
oh no, it's like behind the scenes, you've spent like 20 years or however long it had been, like in a certain way that was unsustainable from the place that it came
Hmm.
from, at least for so long, so long, so long. And I experienced this as well. Then when I started having my kind of like mental breakdown and emotional breakdown and burnout, I was like, what can fix this? And it was
Hmm.
like, you'd already done the damage. It was like, if what was going on internally in terms of like a fatigue energy perspective was shown with weight, you're 1,000 kilos. You're not just going to like
Hmm.
go to the gym for like 3 months and just like work off 1,000 kilos. And so you would have been
Exactly.
losing the weight, but your perception of when it was better would have been when you're back to like 70 kilos metaphorically
Yeah.
with your energy.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's such a great metaphor or analogy. Yeah. Yeah, it was. And then ayahuasca ended up I felt very cold. I got an email one day. I like opened it, clicked the link, got my credit card, paid the thing, and I was like, wow, I just booked an ayahuasca retreat. Like, it was
Yeah.
very just divine. And that was definitely, it felt like a last resort. Like I was starting to feel suicidal again right before I went. And and it was almost, the second time around, it almost was worse, because I was like, damn, like I thought that was my rock bottom, and now I'm still feeling like this. And then, yeah, ayahuasca was like, I'm gonna really go all in. Like I said to myself, like, have I really gone all in? Like really, really.
Mhm.
And I realized like a lot of the work that I'd been doing around the meditation and the yoga and the journaling and all that had started to feel like a bit of a checklist. Like I wasn't doing it with intention.
Totally.
And so in my lead up to ayahuasca retreat and on retreat, and then afterwards, I really put the like intention back in and the ritual back into that stuff. And I think it was just an energetic shift where I was like, I'm honoring myself. I'm going all in on myself. And
Yeah.
I attribute so much change and growth to that ayahuasca retreat, because that's where I really connected with and understood the feminine energy. And just to circle back to the start of your question of like, how do you
Mm.
like doing things differently and being motivated from a different place, and also showing up in a different way. um what I experienced was a deep understanding of the masculine and feminine energy, and that I had been very much acting out of my masculine energy, and not a healed masculine energy either, a more toxic masculine energy,
Yeah.
a masculine energy that I'd adopted as sort of like a 10, 11, 12-year old, when I just downloaded a belief system, or not downloaded, I would say, adopted a belief system that like the world
Mm.
wanted boys, not girls. And I was a girl, and I felt like I was at a disadvantage, and my father had just left, and I was like, felt like I was responsible for my family. And so I just stepped into this masculine, and that was how I was doing the proving and the driving, and everything that I got in my life was coming from that real push, strive, take a lot of action, do a
Mm.
lot, more routine, more structure, more strategy, goals, all of that. And I really connected with like the feminine and the flow and the divinity. And I saw how like I had manifested so many things in my life, but that they could even come faster, and it could even be more like there could be more if I could surrender more to the feminine and the flow of life and of this universe. And it was very it's been a really interesting, just over a year, I suppose it is now, dancing with those two energies and understanding it. And I've done a lot more work to heal both the toxic masculine and the toxic feminine that existed in me, to come to a more healed place of both energies and a more balanced place. But I definitely feel like I'm acting much more in my feminine now, where I can maybe tap my masculine to like get something moving. But for the most part, I'm just like very surrendered and very trusting. And the feeling I have right now, and it's been increasing over the last 2 or 3 months, is like the more that I get into my alignment with myself, the more the universe is just giving me everything that I need. And I know we hear this, and I've heard it, and I'd experienced it before, as I said. Like, I know that I was manifesting that whole time, but now it's like I don't even have to work very hard, like the way that I used to think I had to work hard, like show up at my computer and do all this stuff for hours. And even my team, like, I'm not driving or pushing them either. I'm like, let's just all just tap this flow and this energy, and it's working. Like, it's magic.
So what's your new business?
Oh, so we're working on, my company is Grow My Team.
Yeah,
And I've actually had that business since 2014, but it was like a side business. And in
sure.
January of last year, I stepped in as CEO and bought out my other business partners, and really started driving the business, because it was kind of like a side project. But essentially, we recruit and manage and help build remote teams that are like highly engaged, conscious culture, conscious leadership, and ultimately end up being high performing because of all of that trust and empowerment that happens.
Love it.
And we're currently working on building into turning what we do manually currently into technology, which is a bigger
Wow.
picture, and essentially creating the future of work. Like, I truly feel called to this work, and I
Yeah.
feel called to the fact that the world is shifting and we are not going to work in the same ways that we used to.
Yeah.
And I'm building the platform that's going to the platform that's going to enable and allow everybody to work, all these professionals to work remotely, but to be engaged and to be a part of a team, not like a gig worker, a freelancer, but like have a professional job at all levels up to C-suite, for companies all over the world. So it's like a
Wow.
lot to even quickly get out, but
No, it makes a lot of
I
sense.
never, and I've always felt like I'm creating the business. You know, my ego has been like, good for you. Like, look at the business you're building and look what
Woo!
you did. Whereas now I feel like I'm not. I'm just on the journey. Like, my business
Yeah.
partner is the universe, and off we go. And it's like I don't feel particularly attached to it. It's like it's happening. I know it's happening. I know what it's going to be. I'm
Yeah.
blessed to be the CEO of it right now. I don't know if I will be forever. Like, it doesn't matter. I just follow my calling, my alignment, my intuition, listen where it wants to go, and just trust all of that. And I truly feel that. Like, I truly feel non-attached. I love it. I'm engaged. I'm excited, but
Yeah.
it's not me. I know it. It's so much bigger than me. Like, my
Yeah.
work every day that the universe is telling me is like, just keep getting your shit out of the way so that we can keep doing this. Like, that's all my
Yeah.
work is, not to constrain this thing that already exists.
Yeah. And it was interesting. I actually bumped into one of your, and you might not have been in the business at this point, but I bumped into a lady that works for Wealth Enhancers at a TV station. She was doing an interview in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going there with Jackie D maybe a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Rebecca?
I can't remember. She was good
Probably Beck,
looking.
yeah.
She was good
Yeah,
looking.
she's gorgeous.
Yeah, it was probably Rebecca then. And I was like, oh, tell me about how's everything going with Wealth Enhancers, because I remembered from when I listened to you talk. And she's like, oh, it's good. You know, the bosses are over in the US, and you know, we just do our thing here. And I'm like, how is that for you? Like, and she's like, to be honest with you, when they get involved, it just slows things down.
Yeah.
I was like,
Totally.
that is really, really cool. And it's true as well. And I feel as though you can really see how this works when you think of someone that's like a tradie that's just working their ass off all day, every day. Let's say they're a builder and they run like a 2 or 3 person building company. And they get up early every morning, they're doing the building stuff. And they've done it for 20 or 30 years. And maybe they profit 100K a year, 150K a year, and they've got a good little, gig going. But what happens is one person, like that's the same tradie could have spent a year holidaying and coming up with ideas about how to innovate the building company. And then in the year after could have grown and over the next 2 or 3 years could have profited $1 million total and done more than 10 years of that guy's hard work by actually having the space to get creative and feel into what could have happened. And it's just that fear of change, that fear of control. So it's like control and surrender are the two polarities. And like in that control, you've already got it sorted. So you don't need the universe as your business partner, but you just can't escape your current reality and your possibility. So it's like, if you choose control, it's like, I've got it sorted. And there's this like beautiful quote that I really love: without fear, there's no space for faith. And so essentially, like, without the unknown, there's no need to trust in the universe as your business partner to give you opportunities to do things differently and innovate and change. But if you can do that, you can go into the surrender and be willing to ebb and flow with the way that you're being guided. You don't know what's possible. You know what's possible over here with your little control mechanism, but over here, you don't actually know what's possible. Anything's possible.
It's amazing. And like, I realized that like the whole model of like setting goals and pushing towards something, it's like, what if it wants to be more than that? Like, what if I can't even think as big as what it wants to be? And I'm anchoring us to this goal. And like, generally when we anchor and when we focus on it, like we kind of get toward that. We either get it or we get just past it or just below it or whatever. But like, what if the potential is actually far greater than what I can even think about? Like, what if the potential is something different? So that's what I see my job. And that's been a big, big shift. I sort of started it in the Wealth Enhancers days, exactly as I think it was probably Beck that you saw, but whoever it was, I definitely started like taking my foot off the gas and like freeing up the team to be themselves, be their best. And I started really seeing the advantages. And now in Grow My Team, it's amazing because I have no business partners. So I have no one to like argue with me and say like, oh, you can't do that. Like, you have to control them. You have to still do these things. I can really just let them be, because I'm like, I don't mind. Like, once we do all of this inner work on ourselves and we start to like, I don't know, we never get rid of our ego, but we like soften our ego's power on everything. And we start to be able to surrender to this whole experience as just like a bit of a game, then it doesn't matter anymore. So now I'm like, let's just play the game and have fun and like see where it wants to go, and not have such an ego that I think that I know and I have all these goals and I can push it and I'll get us there. And no, like I actually, and by doing that, like, holy shit, what I'm building right now, I never could have thought of. Like, I couldn't have thought of it. It's so much bigger than me. But through my process of surrendering and listening, and literally like I'll wake up and meditate and just get a whole lot of downloads. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. All right. Okay. That's the thing. Like, this is not my ideas. This is like coming to me. And like, there's no way I could have come up with that myself.
Well, you're the vessel for the ideas, so they're still yours, from the degree of the universe wants you to be the custodian for those ideas.
Which I feel honored.
It's such a beautiful, empowered, like liberated way of going about it. And I feel like for me, there's been this juggling between, because I'm masculine, I like to set goals and achieve things, and I'm an achiever, I like to do that. But I every day, like, I tap into my king, warrior, magician, lover energy in this ritual that I do, and I surrender, and I really tap into the magician vibes, where I'm like asking Father Sky, Mother Earth to gift me with the clarity, allow me to be the vessel for impact today. Like, what do you want me to do, kind of thing. And I tap into that. But at the same time, I see the value. And if I feel really excited about something, going like, yes, this is something I want to create, boom, let's create it. But then where my stretch has been recently is in my ability to then pivot and change if I feel called to go somewhere else. Because that control, like when we're in the control mode, we place self-worth. We're scared of it not going to what we want it to go, because we've attached self-worth and some of our sense of self to that goal. So it's like, I want to achieve this. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, if you don't, you failed and then you're less worthy. So for me, like then pivoting and changing my habit is like, even though I'm setting things intuitively, my habit is to like be scared if I have to surrender the control and then pivot what I've said I'm going to do. And this feeling of stuckness, I think, is one of my stretches when you were talking about like the pleaser stuff and whatnot. Like one of my big ones is being okay and flexible to pivot and change, and you're not letting anything down. Intuition always serves every single party involved. That's a big one for me.
And it all comes back to the conditioning of good or bad, success or failure, like these labels and definitions of things. And I think that the whole reason why we're on this podcast right now is because you and Jack were talking about how I said that I chose life as an entrepreneur and that I'm not a success or a failure if my business succeeds or fails based on other people's definitions anyway. I'm just an entrepreneur, and that's part of like what I experience as an entrepreneur.
That is how we got here. Thanks for bringing that back in. It like ties it off. It's like tying it perfectly. But I love
that's the thing, right? Like there's no good or bad. There's no, like, there is no failure. There's just, that's not working. Let's do something different. Or I'm no longer engaged in that. Like that's fucking totally okay. Like, why would you keep doing something that you're not engaged with? Like, have you ever picked up a book and you get a third of the way through and you're like, I don't like this book.
Yeah.
I used to force myself to read it because I believed it was a good thing to finish all books you started. Like that is just a belief system. It's not even real. It's just like, so what? I'm going to waste
doesn't make any sense.
4 hours of this gift of a life, force myself to finish a book that I'm not enjoying. And that's the same for business, for whatever we're doing. Like if you're not enjoying it anymore, let it go.
Yes. And as like when you can surrender and you see it as a game, but you've already got fulfillment, you've already like tapped into fulfillment and presence and whatever you want to call it. Then when you're on the journey, it's like you said, it's just a game. And when it's a game, like if you played Monopoly with a serious fear of it was your money, you'd be the worst player of Monopoly of all time and you'd always lose. The people that win Monopoly are always those that like buy it up and like have fun with it and go aggressive and really go after it and like trust what they want. Yeah, I want to buy it, and they buy it. Those are the people that always win Monopoly. And if you played Monopoly the way that people play life, you'd always lose. So if you can actually surrender to the game of business, and like you said, I'm in it because I like business. I'm not in it because this has to work or I'm a failure. And if you play that way, you can just like, if you really want the cash or to have like a good cash buffer and stuff, you just like make a bit of growth, have some success, pull it aside, put it in an investment trust, you know, have some more success, put it in the investment trust, blow the business, move on, go to another one. Like it's not a massive deal because you're playing it the way that you want to play it, like a game. I love that analogy. I feel like that's such a cool way to, I feel like this has been epic, and I'd love to, start wrapping it up because I feel like it's this perfect little piece.
That's awesome. I love it.
So before we wrap up, I've got a couple of questions that a couple of things I'd like to do. One is to honor you. I didn't get a chance during you sharing your beautiful story of transformation with so much vulnerability. And I know as someone who puts pressure on myself naturally, just being an achiever and wanting to go after my dreams and all that's just, it's always going to be part of who I am to some degree. And I know that you've got that achiever vibe in you, and to some extent it makes up who you are. Sometimes it's easy to forget about the progress that you've made. And like your journey, listening that you were just like, I did this and then I was suicidal. And I was like really feeling I was feeling a hint of the pain that you went through. And it's incredible that you're here today in business, kicking butt, doing what you love for the fun of it, letting the universe guide you, showing up with the fulfillment, celebrating just life. You got a new amazing relationship. Like I'm really impressed. And I just want to say thank you for being you, and thanks for showing up so authentically and vulnerably. And I'm really excited to connect when things kind of get back to normal. And do you live in Austin or?
Yeah, my partner lives in Austin and I have a place in Colorado. So we've just been splitting time between the two which has been fun during the isolation to at least have 2 places to go to.
Yeah, it's really cool. So thank you for being you. Thank you for coming on. And I've got one more question. But before I ask that question, where can people find you? if they want to
Mm,
like follow your journey, because you post on Insta, like I've seen it, just radically authentic, and it's just like, this is me, this is what I post, this is me, this is what I post, this is what's real for me, this is what I post, and it's so liberate. Like your posts are really beautiful and amazing. So
thank you. It's been very freeing to just put it all out there, all the the things that I thought were horrible about myself, and just to say them online, then it's like, loses all its charge. There's nothing
yeah,
I need to hide anymore.
yeah,
Yeah, you can follow me just at Sarah Riegelhuth. Interestingly, I'm moving through a period right now where I'm about to stop posting for a little while, just because I found this part of me that was like, it's still the external validation. Like it's
yeah,
still the kind of, I post something and, do people like it? Do they respond? And I
yeah,
never post like for that. Everything I write, I literally sit there, something will happen and then I'll just write it and put it out there. Everything that I post just went straight. Like there was no editing or sitting with it or content curation or anything like that.
yeah,
But still, what I was noticing was when I was moving through something, I would be sitting there moving through it thinking, oh, I wonder if, I got to write about this. Like, shall I do a newsletter or should I Instagram? I'm like, wait, just be with your shit right now.
yeah.
And so I'm just practicing a little presence right now, but who knows? I'm sure
Beautiful.
I'll be back on there. But yeah,
Yeah,
find me on Instagram.
sounds like a really healthy detox.
Yeah,
So Riegelhuth so it's Sarah Riegelhuth, and Riegelhuth is Riegelhuth, and it'll be in
correct.
the show notes. But I'd
Yeah,
really like to
Sarah
encourage
Riegelhuth. Yeah.
everyone to send Sarah a message. I know there would have been so much that resonated with you from this podcast, listeners or viewers, because there's just so much radical authenticity, and you've really shared the truth and the depth of your journey and experience. And it's so nice to receive messages of genuine impact or parts of the story that you were touched by Sarah's story. So just shoot her a message, and
Yeah, you can also email me at hello@sarahregelhuth.com as well. So,
awesome.
but
We'll
thank
put
you
both of them.
also for sharing all of your side with me. I appreciate you as well, Ryan.
No worries. It's been really fun. So I've still got one more question and then we'll wrap it up. So my last question is, if you mentioned you did a little bit of mentoring there, and I know you are passionate about your journey of transformation because it's so relevant and real for you. And if someone came to you today and they were an entrepreneur, and you didn't know the stage they're at and you didn't know anything about them, but they said, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million and I just want you to teach me one thing for that $1 million. And it's whatever you think is like the most valuable learning or practice or experience that you've had. What would you either teach them, facilitate for them, recommend that they do? If it was just one thing. Obviously, we know that it could be different based on where they're at, but you don't even know where they're at.
I think, and I hope it's not a cop out because we kind of just talked about it. I think to surrender to the game and tap into the universal flow of what it is you're bringing, and trust yourself and all of the people around you to like let go of the reins and see what this thing can be, is what will blow your mind. And the other thing that would form part of that, or value added bonus, is clear energy. So, and this will transform every area of your life. But if you listen, and when you get into your truth with yourself, you start to be able to understand and feel the truth of any dynamic anywhere. If you listen and feel if the energy is clear between you and someone else, you and your team, your entire team, your one-on-one, you and one other person, and if the energy is not clear, that you look in yourself of what have you not cleared, and to clear it, which is just to speak whatever it is that is, not been spoken, because that's basically what happens whenever there is something unsaid between people. The energy is not a clear channel, and every single dynamic, the energy is shifting. So you and I have an energy dynamic right now. If somebody else walks into the room, we're not even in the same room, but pops onto the Zoom room, there's a new energy that's created. And then if you left and it was me and that person, there's a new energy. So our energy channels are always connecting between everyone. There is an energy in your company. So you as a leader, if there's anything that is unsaid between you and your team, that is sitting in the energy of your company, and that is destructive. Know it. It is destructive. And if you have it just with you and one particular team member, it's destructive to that relationship, and then it'll be destructive to the entire team. So clear all of the energy. And while you sit there listening to this and think, but what if it's somebody else's stuff? What if it's like I know somebody else has got something or whatever? Just go inward. Look at yourself, clear what you can, be in truth. If they're not the person for the team, move them out, like have a conversation about alignment, whatever it is. But that's what I constantly look for in my team, is making sure the energy is clear. An example, I noticed I was not giving leads to one of my new growth consultants a few months back, right when she'd started. And I was like, damn, I did that twice. I didn't give her the lead. I dealt with it myself. What is that? Called her up. I'm like, we need to talk. I didn't give you the lead. There's something that I'm feeling. I'm not feeling like you're ready yet. And why am I not feeling that? I'm sorry, I'm not trusting you or whatever. And we just had this open conversation and we cleared it. Like, as soon as you feel it, clear it.
I love
Be honest.
Because if you don't do that right, your ability to then get trust in an independent workflow would be very difficult, because there's stocked up and stuck resentment between people.
When you start creating stories and all sorts of, I could talk for hours about what will happen if you don't, but if that is the one thing that I can say is like, pay attention to the energy field between you and your colleagues, between your entire company culture and your own contribution to it, and just keep it clear as you can all the time, and just watch it watch it grow and thrive and just flourish as you have it clear. And the way to know, because I think as leaders, we can be like, well, this is just something at a leadership level, like the team doesn't need to know this. Just be in truth with yourself. That might be true. You'll know if it's true or not. Like, there are things that people don't maybe need to know, but you wouldn't even think about them. If it's on your mind, it needs to be said. Wow. If it's in your physical body, if you can feel it, if you're having one little question about whether something, how you should position something or whether it should be said or not, like, that's the thing that needs to be said.
Wow.
That's my experience.
That's so powerful.
I don't like to just tell people, but yeah, that's
really powerful. And that's so cool, because let's say you didn't surrender and you hadn't become the beautiful goddess allowing the universe to flow through her in business, then I can just imagine stories would have come up like, I'm starting this business. It's a recruitment business. Business is usually done like this. Management is usually done like this. And you've got such an authentic, new age, more relevant, more present way of managing, hiring, training, building trust in the company to therefore increase people's motivation to want to contribute to the vision and the mission. Super cool. I love it. And so if anyone's interested in finding out more, just go either email hello@sarariegelhuth.com or go on her Instagram. I'd go on her Instagram, because then you can find her other team thing as well. And
you can find Grow My Team on Instagram as well, and growmyteam.com.au.
Amazing. Thank you so much for today. And pussy and nuts was definitely a highlight. I forgot to come back to.
Pussies are awesome. Nuts are great too.
At the right time, which the universe will decide. Amazing. Cool. Thank you so much for coming on, Sarah. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. It was amazing.